All right. Hello, welcome back or welcome to A Cuppa Books. My name is Ariel, and today I'm joined by some lovely ladies and friends, and we're here today to do the Charmed book tag. So, if you're new here, my name's Ariel, and I am a big fantasy, sci-fi, YA fantasy, occasional romance reader. And I'm going to let these lovely folks introduce themselves.
I'm Angela, going as Piper because she's the best character in Charmed. I guess after Grams. Grams is really cool. But in the sisters, of the four sisters, Piper's the best. I really like her powers too. My channel's Literature Science Alliance. I talk about books. The majority of what I read is science fiction and fantasy in the adult age range, but I read a bunch of stuff. So go this way.
I'm Stephanie. My channel is Miss Richards Reads, and I am Prue, who I was just informed by Piper is a wet blanket.
Yes. I mean, okay, Piper in the show loves you. Me as Angela doesn't.
It's okay. It's fine. But I primarily read fantasy classics and cozy mysteries, and I'm happy to be here and do this tag. And yes.
Hi, I'm Katrina. I do not have a booktube channel, but I am on Bookstagram as the Diary of a Book Nerd. I read mostly fantasy and sci-fi, some contemporary romance, and some classics. And I love Charmed. I haven't seen it in a very long time, but I am at least the second best sister, Phoebe. So I'm happy.
I mean, some people would put Phoebe above Piper. She has some of the better arcs.
Yeah, she has some interesting arcs in that show.
Indeed. I'm Evie. My channel is She Was Only Evie. I read a wide variety of books. Classics, fantasy, sci-fi, basically anything Angela tells me to read, I'll read it. Yeah.
Lucy's face.
Yeah, she has to be.
So for those of you who have maybe never joined us before, there's often a lot of pet cameos. So stay tuned for that. So I think what we'll do is we'll do kind of like what we did before. We'll pop the question up. Piper will start and I will kind of go last. So question number 1. In this night and in this hour, I call upon the ancient powers. Bring your power to we, sisters 3. We want the power. Give us the power. And that is a book or series that started you off on your magical journey of reading.
All right. I had a few. I didn't know how far back we wanted to go. So I tried to pick books that I think for sure I read on my own. Like they weren't books that like my parents read to me. Because like my mom literally tells me all the time about me in my crib surrounded by the big Disney picture books. You know, the ones that are like this thick.
Oh, yeah.
Like there were more books than children in the crib. Like I don't think it was a good safety precaution, but I wanted the books in the bed. But so the 3 I had was the Magic School Bus picture books, you know, the really big ones. Like that also probably is for me science too. I loved like reading the I one, like going into that one's so cool. Mm-hmm. And my first chapter book was the Bailey School Kids, specifically the one about swim teachers can't be mermaids or something like that. Like, it's not the first book. The first book's Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots. Yeah. And then the book that got me into reading books like Candy was Replica, because that series is like 20 or 30 some books long, and it's a YA series about this clone who doesn't know she's a super clone, and her mom's not her real mom, and it goes crazy. Everyone else is reading Animorphs, and I'm here like Replica. So there's like that really is in a nutshell what the Half Price Bookstore did to me. There you go.
So I have 3. Number 1 is one of my all-time favorites, Anne of Green Gables. I've been reading that for as long as I can remember. I also said the Bailey School Kids. I used to collect those all the time. And then Nancy Drew. Mm-hmm. This was my first series that I just absolutely fell in love with. And this one's my favorite, The 99 Steps.
How many are there of those? I've only read like, I think 10 or so.
The original is like 56, like the canon, but there's like hundreds and hundreds, and there's like offshoots. And
Wow. Was she
I
one
have
of those
about-
authors that they wound up doing like ghostwriters after she died?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so.
I'm so glad you also read Bailey School Kids, because a lot of people read the Magic Treehouse books or whatever, and I didn't read
never got
those.
into those.
I didn't read those.
Bailey School
Neither.
Kids is so much better.
Yeah, it's so good, but none of my friends read it. And I was alone.
They missed out.
I've never even heard of them, so
They're great. I've saved all of mine for my children, and they probably won't read them, but I've saved them all.
I regret that. I think we gave mine away to my cousin, and I regret doing that.
Can I add
Because
one
now
more?
you can't find them.
Yes,
They have new
you can
covers.
add
You
one
can
more.
sort of, but they're not as good covers.
Yeah.
I want to add Matilda, because that was also important.
Yes.
ooh,
Yes.
I remember reading it in Venezuela. Like, I was reading that, and it was so good. So
Yes.
Also a great one.
I also have a couple answers. The first one that got me obsessed with reading was Alice in Wonderland,
Yes.
but also the Boxcar Children
Mhm. Yep.
and Harriet the Spy. I loved that book so
Oh.
much.
the Boxcar Children is why I like survival stories. I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally just live on my
I can
own.
make it. Yeah. It's easy.
They were just so resourceful, and they worked so well together.
Yeah.
They really did.
So for me, I do not have a book from my childhood because I feel like I went through ebbs and flows of being passionate about reading. So I picked a book that kind of started me back on this current reading journey for the past few years, and that is Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. And made me fall back in love with classics, other than obviously Jane Austen. And now I've been reading basically nonstop ever since I read this in early 2019. So if you don't know, she's the most realistic Bronte. Sorry, Prue, but she's the best Bronte.
Who does Prue
We're gonna-
think the best Bronte is? I don't know
Charlotte.
Charlotte. Jane Eyre.
Okay, so you like Jane Eyre. Which one wrote Wuthering Heights?
Emily.
Emily.
And then which one's this one?
She's the realistic one. And
Yeah.
Bronte.
Okay. I mean,
She
I
is-
just think all of
she
them.
is very
I don't know if I
realistic.
want any of it. I know the gist of Jane Eyre. I've read Wuthering Heights, so I don't know.
I like how we're having like multiple like which sister is the best sister
Yeah.
conversations in this live stream. So for me, and I'm going to tell you all right away, I don't have any of my books to hold up because they're all in this book tree that I built over the weekend and kind of didn't plan that. But so for me, the two like series, so Matilda was one for me as well, because Matilda was the first book I ever read in an entire day. Like literally just like picked it up from the library and like was just absolutely enthralled. But for me, the series that really got me into reading, I feel like Evie might be the only one who knows this series, is the Pony Pals.
I vaguely
Yeah.
recall that.
Mm-mm.
So
Who wrote that?
I will honestly like, and honestly for all of us, I can always like list everything that we say because I don't know if any of us are going to be holding up books, but I will have to look it up too. There were a lot, and that was
Bentecourt?
like, what's that?
John Bentecourt, is that the name? That sounds right. There's
I thought it was
44 books.
a woman, but maybe.
Or maybe I'm not saying the name right. It's a French name, I can already tell, so I'm really bad at knowing what letters to put in or not.
No worries. Honestly, I couldn't tell you about that. I just remember that series vividly. So for anyone who's not familiar with Pony Pals, it follows three best friends, and they each have a pony, and they like solve mysteries. They train together. They do show it was kind of like reading like a Nancy Drew thing, but with horses. And so I was really into that. And then the other book I read a lot was Lad a Dog and My Friend Flicka as well.
I remember that one.
Yeah. And I also read the sequel to My Friend Flicka, which was Thunderhead, but I never read Green Grass of Wyoming, which I think was the third and final book in this series. But those are like the books that I remember the most from my childhood. And then Tamora Pierce came shortly after, which everyone here knows.
I'm so sad that I didn't get Tamora Pierce when I was a kid. Like I missed Tamora Pierce so, and I would have loved it. I would have loved it.
That's the thing. Like I meet so many people who like don't know her, and at this point, it's like if you started with her later stuff and went in with a YA mindset, you'd probably enjoy it. But if you go back to like her early stuff, it's not going to land well because it's just dated and meant for a much younger audience than even probably what would be considered YA. But so that was those for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
All your horse books reminded me of the dog books I read. I read so many dog books.
I did too.
Big Red, Call of the Wild, White Fang, so many dog books.
I read Where the Red Fern Grows.
Yes.
I won't do it.
Don't.
I'm not going.
I read it
I already
and I was
know.
traumatized.
In class, I sobbed reading that book.
I remember my third grade teacher read Old Yeller to us, the entire book.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
That's so traumatizing.
On something less traumatizing, alternatively from Pony Pals, there's also, I remember reading Saddle Club. Although I think that was like a few years.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I feel like I tried Saddle Club and preferred Pony Pals.
Yeah, it was more like, contemporary drama rather than an actual like mystery or whatever.
I'm surprised none of us read The Babysitter's Club. I thought that
I did. I forgot about that. I did read The Babysitter's Club.
Okay.
And I never read it.
But
yes.
All right. Are we ready to head for question 2? All right. How do you say their last name?
Halliwell?
Halliwell Manor, a house, place, or world you'd want to live in. Can you tell I've never watched the show?
We should have prefaced this.
I should have led with
She was just being nice and letting us do a charms tag on her channel.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy to do it. I just have no context for a lot of this. So
you've had time. You didn't binge watch the entire series.
It's a trope of these women didn't know they were born with magical powers because their grandmother kept their powers from them until she died, and then they get their powers. But they're in their mid-20s, and of course, all they want to do is get married and have kids because it's the 90s.
Right.
But then they have to fight supernatural forces
while trying to find a husband.
While trying to find a husband, important.
No, but it's really a big part. Like you meet them and they're like 23, and all they're thinking about is like love and Piper wants a career. She owns a nightclub, but she wants to be a chef.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole thing. It's so great. And there's like the main plot arcs are: where's Leo? Is Phoebe dating someone evil? Is the baby evil? We don't want to be witches anymore. We're empowered witches. Let's do this. Those are the main plot arcs that you rotate through.
Who is this ghost?
Oh, and if you get bored, you throw in the source. You're just like, and then there's the source.
Okay, maybe eventually I'll do my homework that I failed to do before this live stream. Anyway.
Okay, so the world I want to be in, we were supposed to do this a couple weeks ago, and so when I answered these questions, I was reading a Karen Lord book, so my answer is a Karen Lord world. And this is Cygnus Beta, which is the world of the best of all possible worlds, and the follow-up book, The Galaxy Game. I was reading The Galaxy Game. This is just space with worlds and cultures. I don't know. I just like her worlds. I just have a real fun time. They have a game in this world where people just like have gravity makeshift stuff on walls that they just bounce between. I don't know. This question's hard for me as a fantasy reader because most fantasy worlds, I'm just like, I want a toilet with like plumbing. Yeah. Like most of the time, it's basic things. No, it's not even the scary part. Is there a toilet? Is there a shower? Where do I get my contact prescription from? So then I lean more towards sci-fi, but I don't want to be like in a dystopian military sci-fi. No. And this is not dystopian. This is a world. It has its own problems, but it largely tries to fix injustices. Like the premise of this book is there's a whole culture that got displaced from its planet because of biological warfare, and this other planet's taking them in and helping them not assimilate, but coexist, like find a part of the planet that is good for their culture and their way of life. And man, what a world, right? What a world.
The best of all possible worlds.
Yeah. This book's great. I love it. I bought this cover special off eBay because it's the UK hardback, and I like it a lot. Ignore the hummingbird. I don't know why it's there. So.
I was trying not to go for my usual answers and to jazz it up a bit. So I went with The World and A Master of Gin, just because it's an alternative Cairo, and it's got gin and all sorts of mythological things there. And I just think it'd be really cool, especially if I were a detective like the main character. I think it would be exciting.
And it's the 20s, so I think there's plumbing, so that fits my rules, personally.
Yes. Or at least
no one thinks about this.
Updated.
No, it's true. It's true.
Yes.
Well, my answer, there is definitely plumbing. I went with a contemporary romance called The XX. I just read this recently, and it's a contemporary romance mixed with fantastical elements. So the premise is the main character is a witch, as well as the rest of her family. And she runs into her ex-boyfriend and realizes that she accidentally cursed him, and they have to fix it. So this book gave me Charmed, Halloween Town, and Gilmore Girls vibes.
I like how
hardcore.
All of this sounds wonderful.
It was like, okay, the fantasy elements weren't perfect. It was very just kind of light, like, I don't know. It was like quirky. But if you want, you just land in this little Halloween town. They just love Halloween because it was founded by a witch, but no one knows that's why. So it's very spooky and cozy. So I would live there. I think that would be fun.
I've learned recently that almost all witchy things must take place in New England to be relevant. I was watching Practical Magic. The only one that doesn't is Charmed. It's just randomly in California.
I forget where this one is, but part of it takes place in Wales. Part of it. Oh wait, no, I do remember. I think it's Georgia, actually. Is that right? Georgia.
Oh, like a little Southern Gothic witchy.
Yeah,
in
cool.
Georgia. I like that.
That's awesome.
Speaking of Halloween Town, fun fact: Marnie is dating Cal in real life from Halloween Town 2.
I saw that. They make reels on Instagram all the time.
I know. I know. I'm like, holy crap, this is great. Anyways, my answer to this is not necessarily. I don't know. I just picked this like 5 minutes before we started, to be honest. The House of Spirits by Isabel Allende. The basis of this, so it's a multi-generational story following this one family, which I'm totally blanking on the name. Treba, there you go. Family. And it starts off, and really the basis and the crux of this family is in this house that is, you don't really know what aspects of the house are magical, but there are magical elements in this house, and the matriarch of the family has like magical ish powers. It's not explained because this is a magical realism novel. I think it's considered a classic in the genre, but it's very, very good. It follows the family from, I can't remember the exact time frame, but it follows them through, I think, about 60 to 70 years. It starts with the matriarch, and then it ends with the granddaughter. I almost said grandson, but no, it follows mostly women. And I think it's really, really good. This is yet another book that actually kind of helped restart my reading journey. So I want to read more
stuff by her.
Yes, I want to read more by her, which I think she has a new book coming out in a couple of months. So I'm really interested to read that. But she has a ton out. So
yeah, the one I've seen is the historical fiction, and it's like a World War II, but you focus on Chile.
It's long petal.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Tangent. I just picked up my copy of her retelling of the Zorro origin story.
That's another one I wanted to read.
Yeah, I recommend that immensely. So for me, I struggled with this one. This was the one I struggled with because kind of like what Angela said, I was like, well, initially I was like Middle Earth, and I was like, maybe not. And then I said a couple others was like, nope, no plumbing, or nope, women don't have much agency there, all of these things. And so I finally settled on sort of cheating, but I would pick the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender if I had to pick a world.
Solid.
Preferably if I could be a bender, but if I wasn't, I think it would still be a pretty neat place to live.
Mm-hmm.
What nation?
That was the one I was like. Ooh.
Excellent question.
And so, like, personality-wise, if I was a bender, I've always been told that I would probably be a water bender. But if I'm just choosing a nation, I would probably live in the Earth Kingdom because I like all the rivery, jungly areas. I don't want to live in Fire Nation, and nothing against like the Air Nation, but like I would just not do well. And I like my hair, so I don't want to get rid of it. So that was my answer.
I'd probably live in Republic City in Korra time.
Yeah, that would also be really cool. Okay, now we're moving on to the ones that are based off the characters. So Prue Halliwell, a kick-ass female lead.
I disagree with this assessment of Prue. I mean, actually, they're all really good fighters, but
rude.
I don't think Prue's a good lead. I think she's just fine. What is the major arc and charm that surrounds Prue? She dies. That's the one.
Spoiler alert.
I was saying my spoiler banner was too far down to get to it.
Oh, it's from the 90s. This is not no.
That's true. If you don't know.
Yeah.
Now you know.
You're me.
Did you ever wonder why suddenly from 3 sisters for the power of 3 there were 4?
No. But go ahead with your answer.
which book is it? I don't know. So I have Lady Trent from The Natural History of Dragons because she is one of the best leads ever. Like, she's so awesome. I love Lady Trent. I wish I had read the series as it came out so I could have collected the hardbacks, but they're really hard to find. And like, I loved the audiobook, so if I reread it, it's going to be audiobooks. So like, owning the physicals would just be to have them on my shelf, which I have done before. But Lady Trent, it's set in a Victorian-esque world, so it's very similar to our world. It just has different names for countries and stuff. And it's Victorian period. There's still a patriarchy, so she's not supposed to be a scientist because blah, blah, blah. But she loves dragons, and so she tries to study dragons. And it's a 5-book series of her memoirs of how she did that, and she's awesome and fantastic and sassy. And then I wanted to talk about Hanani from the Dreamblood duology and the Shadowed Sun, because I think, so she is your more stereotypical kick-ass lead in terms of, like, she's a go-getter, fights the patriarchy, woohoo. Hanani fights the patriarchy in a very subtle, quiet way. She just is doing what she does best herself, and she's not trying to prove a point. She's in a man's field, and she's just good at it, and she's not snarky, she's not sassy, she's just quietly strong. And I feel like that is also a kick-ass character, and I love her. See, Evie doesn't agree with my Prue takes, but Evie agrees with my Hanani takes.
Indeed. One of the few books that is better than the first in a series. So
for sure. The Shadowed Sun is a whole star better for me than The Killing Moon.
Nice.
Well, The Killing Moon's Jemison's first written, and you can kind of just tell that she hasn't quite gotten to that max of her craft in The Killing Moon.
So. Technically, my book has 2 female leads, but it's The Island of Sea Women by Lisa C. She wrote Snowflower and The Secret Fan. Yeah. But it follows Young-suk and Mija, and they live on the island of Jeju. I think I pronounced that right. But I like it because it's a matriarchal society where the women are the breadwinners, and they like free dive to get like food and fish for their village. And they just go through a lot, and they go through some wars, and it's a multi-generational story, but they're just so strong. And I just love that they're the matriarchy of their society instead of the men. So it was really, really good.
I had never heard of that.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, I just picked it up on a whim because I liked the cover, and it was a 5-star read. So
wow. I love when that happens.
5-star cover buys.
Yeah. It kind of proves that cover buys are worth it. you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't really read a lot of historical fiction, which this is, and it was fantastic. And I learned a
Historical
lot
fiction's
doing it.
great as long as it's not just 10,000 World War II books.
Exactly.
So mine also has 2 main female characters, and I chose Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. And I kind of chose this one because how Angela chose 2 different books for 2 different kinds of strengths. I did that because the 2 sisters in this book show 2 different kinds of strengths. One kind of comes into herself and is more of the conventional kick-ass lead, and one is a little bit more quiet but finds a different kind of strength. And I think everyone knows what this is about, but basically 2 sisters. One is married off in a political marriage, and the other one goes after her because she was the one that was supposed to be married in her place, and then their father switched it last minute. And the sister who was married off just didn't realize everything that she was getting into. And something fell out.
Bookmark.
Yep. This is probably, I can't say that this is my favorite Sanderson I've read so far, but the humor in this really did it for me. There's a character in this that is hilarious, and they're trying to solve a mystery, and their inner monologue just makes me giggle all the time. I love it. So,
I assume you're talking about Light Song.
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah.
He's my favorite.
I think that's one of the most fun Sanderson books I've ever read.
It's the first one I ever read.
Yeah. No, I think that one, that's a good way to describe. Well, it depends. If you like Era 2, that one is by definition just popcorn candy fun. But Warbreaker, in terms of like epic fantasy with like all of the like royalty tropes and stuff.
Yeah.
You're still trying to convince me not to read it.
You shouldn't. You don't like how he writes things.
Yeah, don't read it.
Don't waste your time.
You don't like how he forms sentences. Like, I don't understand.
I mean, it's not technically like it's not bad.
Correct, but they do nothing for you. I understand.
Apparently, he's the Prue of writers for me, like a wet.
No.
You just don't like Prue.
So much savagery. Love it.
Jeez. I'm just gonna leave in a minute.
No, not you. I love you. Just not Prue.
So my answer is no one should be surprised that I'm bringing this author up at least once. Denora from The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. So Denora is the daughter of one of the kind of, I don't want to say protagonist, but like catalytic characters that kind of starts the action of the story. And she's in high school, and I mean, I can't really say much without giving away part of the plot, but the premise of the story is that one of the main characters, Lewis, and 3 of his other friends are on the Blackfeet reservation, and they go hunting where they should not be going hunting, and they wind up killing an elk, and 10 years later, it catches up to them, and vengeance is nigh, or is near, whatever the word is. So,
Nice, that works.
yeah, there you go. But yeah, so Denora is just, I think the reason that I like her so much and that why I think she's so badass is because of what she faces with the entity and how she faces the entity. And especially the ending. If you read this and you know the ending, I think you will understand why I like her. And I think she's such a strong character.
I totally agree with that.
I'm like so shocked it wasn't Bosnia. Like so shocked.
There's still a few questions left.
It's true. I had 2 answers for this one, for actually 2 different reasons. One was like, so my first one is okra from The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Or not okra. That's a vegetable. Oh my gosh, guys. Orca.
No, none of us had read that book. We could have.
Yeah, we have no idea.
Yeah, but so many of our friends have read that book and would have come for me. So Orca, because she is like the warrior, shield maiden warrior badass. So like she's a good fighter. She teaches some other characters how to fight and just is like out to find people who did stuff to her family and make them pay. And then my other answer is Ren from Mask of Mirrors, because I picked because she has her own like way of fighting and stuff when she needs to, like physically fighting, but she's so quick on her feet. She is so intelligent and so like good at weaving. So if you haven't read Mask of Mirrors, it revolves around a con, especially initially. And so she just does a really good job of like, here's the plan. Oh no, the plan went wrong. And how do I spin this? How do I spin this in the moment? How do I react to this? How do I lay breadcrumbs for stuff for later? And I just thought that was so well done. And I just finished Liar's Knot last night. So yeah.
I'm
so
getting my copy tomorrow. I cannot wait. But she is literally the only con artist character where I believe that's who she is, and it's not the author just telling me. Yeah. Like, it's the only time that's ever worked for me. And like, I love the Davabad trilogy, but like, Nari's got nothing on Ren.
Well, especially because like she's running like multiple.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, so I can't wait to hear what you think of Liar's Knot. I'm very excited for you to get to it. But
I'm going to the library to work on my dissertation tomorrow and then treating myself to buying the book. Yes. That is tomorrow's plan. The bookstore's right next to my library. It's a really horrible situation.
That is just asking for trouble.
Preach yourself.
But yeah, I have to go pick up my actual copy. I had an advanced reader's copy digitally.
I do too, but like, I don't know. There's something about just waiting for release day and getting the physical to read.
100%. I like partway through. We're going to go off on a tangent. Partway through like reading the advanced reader copy, I had a moment of like, so one of the things to know about Mask of Mirrors and even Liar's Knot is they just drop you in. They do not hold your hand. They do not make it easy. They just drop you in. And that happens again in Liar's Knot, which if I had done an actual reread, probably wouldn't have been as drastic. But it'd been like a year since I read it. And so at first I was like, maybe it's not. And then I was really worried that like I was going to have like a book 2 flop. And I was really, because this has happened to me where I recently had read a series where the first book was amazing. And then I read the second book and it wasn't, at least for me. And so I was like panicking. I was like, maybe it's just because it's a digital copy. Maybe I should just stop and then just wait for the physical. And then I was like, but this was also very nicely sent to me, and I would like Orbit to maybe send me stuff in the future. So it's like I felt like I had to finish it and post my review, which I did this morning. Anyways, okay. Moving on. Let's keep it going. Question number 4. Piper Halliwell, your bookish mom.
Piper's best sister. And Piper gets to shine because Prue leaves, so Piper gets to become the oldest sister. And I like that.
Stephanie, do you want to swap names?
I feel like this is going to become like a Michael Nip, Christy Lewis beef thing. We're just going to have videos coming out next week explaining.
I just love Piper's abilities, and she's just always so stressed. She is true to her character the entire time.
The most anxiety-riddled character.
Like, always. And the fact that her power is to freeze things.
And she's like, ah!
But, like, in the show, all the powers upgrade at any given point, and at a moment in high stress, her powers upgrade into a violent power. It's so funny watching her be like, I don't know, I might freeze him, I might blow him up, I don't know. She's absolutely the best, okay? So this was hard because I don't know what it means, a bookish mom. Like, I want someone in the book to be my mother, if that's the case.
That's how I took it.
I just decided to go with moms that I thought were cool, because I don't know if I haven't read a character where I'm like, yeah, that's my mom. I've read characters and seen characters I'm like, that's my grandma. But mom is harder, I feel. So I'm going with Misaki from The Sword of Kaigen. She's awesome. And she's a mom. The Sword of Kaigen, I feel like everyone talked about it last year, but no one's talked about it this year. is an independent fantasy standalone that takes place on this peninsula, I think. I don't think it's an island. I feel like island is Greenbone Saga, and this one's a peninsula. But there's a region of it that is a lot more older in its technology, but this world itself does have things equivalent to cell phones and TVs and stuff like that. And we have these families of people who have the ability to waterbend, and they are supposed to protect their empire. And we have multiple perspectives. And one of them is this cool mother who got to leave this peninsula and like travel and like interact with other cultures and things like that. And then she comes back to her culture, which is very patriarchal. And she chooses to be a mom. And she's a great mother character because it shows a mom that is not always in love with being a mother. I think that's really important. It also shows a lot of the hardness that goes into being a parent and being someone who is trying to procreate. So there's a lot of trigger warnings around motherhood if you are someone who needs that, and I would look them up. But I think it's good to have a well-rounded mother character in fiction, because I feel like a lot of time it only either shows the complete bad or complete good, and I think this does a good job of just showing the messiness of being a mom. I could have said Broken Earth trilogy, and I wrote it down, but I didn't. So.
Well, this should save some time. I also said Misaki for the same reasons. She's very realistic and very awesome, and I love her. So
you should just talk about it soon then.
Moving on.
So for spoiler reasons, I can't say the name of this character. However, she is in the Long Price Quartet, and she is introduced in book 2. And this was the hardest question for me because there is a serious lack of mom characters in fantasy. Mm-hmm. There are many father characters, and a lot of the mother characters are devious or malicious or
dead.
Right. But there is a character in here, and you see, because this is a story told over many, many years, you see her grow into a mother figure and a mother character, and the patience and the love that she shows her family, but also the mistakes that she makes and the way she reacts to those mistakes is very realistic and emotional. And I literally get emotional when I think about it. So that's it.
We're back to our normal. Katrina gives me a book I haven't read yet.
I'm going to hold this up every time we come here until someone here reads it.
I want to. I just don't.
That's on my list.
I started to read it, and then I was like, I'm not in the proper headspace, so I'm going to pause.
That's okay. For that. You tried.
Yeah. So I took I interpreted this prompt completely different. Mainly because I couldn't really think of a bookish mom that wasn't assumed from the Broken Earth trilogy. So my answer is just an author that I would like to be my mom. And I know this is going to sound really weird once I say my answer, but Octavia E. Butler.
And do you know what she writes?
Yes, I know what she writes, but here's the thing. She's one of the very few authors that I completely trust. And once I'm in her hands, story-wise, I go wherever she goes. Even to the weird places. So
she goes to weird places.
She does go to weird places.
That's true.
So
you have the cool eccentric mom.
Yeah. I wouldn't even say eccentric. I would be a little bit. Yeah.
There's just there was a book Jessie on her wrap up today had to DNF Clay's arc because Clay's arc gets disturbingly dark. And I was like, I get it. I understand. I was able to consume it, and I just couldn't look away from the disaster. But
I haven't read that series yet, but Bloodchild and Other Stories has, from what I've heard, has a story in it that directly relates to that type of thing.
I mean, it's just, she really just goes there sometimes, and you just are like, this is uncomfy. It's uncomfy.
Yeah. I felt that way a couple times with Wild Seed when I read it.
Oh, Wild Seed's not
I'm-
who plays Ark.
Oh no, I know. I knew I was getting, because I had also read Kindred and I've read pieces of other stuff, so I know that that's light for Octavia Butler, but
She doesn't trust humans. She doesn't think humans are good people.
No, she just also doesn't shy away from it. So for me, I went with kind of what Angela had said, where I was trying to think of a character that like I would want to be my mother. And so I actually also realized that this character has some traits that my mother has. And so I said Lizzie from Pride and Prejudice.
Oh.
Because my actual real life mother very much would be kind of like Lizzie, where it's like if someone does something or like sort of like does something against her family, my mom's like party line is, you can do whatever you want to me, but don't mess with my kids, sort of thing. And so like I felt like there were some parallels there, but also I think it would just be, especially if you're like living in that time period, to have like a Lizzie Bennet as your mom, who's like basically like, hey, like read books, go for walks, like things like that. So marry for love, not money. Yeah.
Yes.
So.
No plumbing though.
No.
But
not
you could read.
I could read all day. I wouldn't have to do anything except run a house, but it's fine. Okay, that was.
We're on to Phoebe.
We're on to Phoebe. A character you wish you knew the future of. Oh, wow, that's a nice typo. That's fun. A character you wish you knew the future of, or who you can't wait to see the future of.
I have two. And one of them I'm in the middle of this book, and I'm sure Stephanie knows answers, but I've got Jade Legacy, where all of them, the entire No Peak clan, what's what, don't know, bad things, I'm
paper
sure.
bag handy.
Yeah. And then also, like you mentioned, the Liar's Knot. I just want to know what's happening with that crew. These are my anticipated releases, and like I have one, and I'm getting the other tomorrow, and I hate that they're so close to each other. I wish I had one more week gap between them, because I can't imagine not starting the Liar's Knot tomorrow, but I'm only 190 pages into Jade Legacy, so I'm struggling.
Oh no.
I am struggle bus. So, but those are the main two right now, where I'm just like, So mainly, I want to know what's going to happen to Vargo, my boy. Don't you say a word.
I want nothing. A word.
No, don't you say a word.
I'm not. I will not. I would not do that to you.
All right. Well, that's me.
Yeah. I have two answers. One was Jade Legacy, which I'm farther than you, but I still have a ways to go, and it's getting stressful. So
it's so big. Look at this duck jet.
I know. I left my arc in the other room, but the arc is huge too. But it's so good. And my other one was Mappo and Icarium from Dead House Gates. They're my favorite. And this kind of ended like open-ended. And I don't know what's going to happen to them or when I'm going to see them next. So.
Do you want to know when you see them next?
No.
Okay.
But I love them so much. They're a great friend pair.
They're the best. I love them.
And they're adorable. So.
They're just such old farts.
They are.
They're like thousands of years old.
I love old fart characters. They're awesome.
Great. They're great. So yeah, I'm nervous for them too, to see what happens, because this is a hard series. So.
Well, I can't wait to see the future of Lady Trent, because I still have not read the second book.
I haven't either.
The second book's so good.
I know. Okay, so I have this thing. It's a weird thing. I read this a while ago now, and I keep looking at it on my wish list. Like, oh, should I buy it? No, it's fine. I have lots of books to read, and now I'm in December, and I don't buy myself things in December for some reason. Too close to the holidays. I don't know why. It's just a thing. So now I have to wait until January to even buy the second book. But
you never know when accidental packages will drop at your door.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. But the way this ends, I am very curious to see what happens to Lady Trent in the next book. Because, wow, I wasn't expecting that.
What's so nice about the Lady Trent series, too, is it's a memoir, right? So you know she lives. Like, you always know she lives.
I
and there's
know.
something so comfortable in that.
And, okay, it is such, like, a nostalgic type of read, even though I have no nostalgic attachment to it because I've never read it before. But when I was reading this first book, it was just so cozy. And, yeah, it's a great book. I've seen that cover for years, and I was like,
no, I never wanted to buy it off the cover. I was like, well, most people are like, Angela, science, yes? And I'm like, no, don't want.
Nope. I thought it was going to be written like a textbook or something
that's
like
what
that.
I thought.
Well, and then they also said with Jane Austen vibes, and I was like, was it Jane Austen?
Yeah.
Something like that. And I was like, I don't know if I'd like it, because sometimes they say that and it doesn't deliver. But it delivered.
I only read it because 2 people sent me a copy of this book. And I'm like, okay, I will read this book. It was Kayla and Jocelyn. Because I don't have a wish list because I'm bad at things. And I only let a few people know where I live because I don't actually need 50 books. Yeah, it's a mistake. Evie should not know where I live.
Yeah, you gave the wrong person your address.
It was before I knew any better. But regardless.
There's a reason I have this.
That's Evie, yeah.
Some of them are Evie, some's Katrina, other people. Anyways, I'm great. I know all of us are when we receive books that we're all very grateful.
Oh yeah, no, I was so grateful. And then I was like, well, I have to read this. And then I was like, oh, I read the preface, and I'm like, oh, this is not what I expected. Let's go.
I love that though.
Yeah.
I love that 2 people bought you the same book. I think that's...
It's because it has science on it. I am typecast.
Oh, okay. Well, that's less so. But at least it turned out to be right?
Like, everyone wants me to read The Love Hypothesis. I am so typecast.
I know, but it's so good.
It is.
I know, but everyone's always like, the
PhD
stuff. And I'm like, tell me another thing that makes me want to read it less.
Don't
read it for that.
Don't focus on that. But it explores problems with that. I think in a good way.
The romance I'm reading next is I just pre-ordered it. It comes out tomorrow. That's the one I'm reading.
You can read this after Amor.
You act like I'm reading more than 4 books this month. You're wrong.
I didn't say it had to be this month. I know where you live. I can send you a book.
That's true.
Oh my goodness. And everyone's wish list will be in the description of this video.
All right, Graham, it's your turn. Go.
I was going to say, is it my turn? Even though I'm probably going to regret wanting to know more about this character, but Fitz from the Farseer trilogy. Yeah. Again, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse by saying this. If this first book is like the weakest of the bunch, and there's so much more heartache and heartbreak to go with the rest of this series, I might as well just take out my tear ducts and send them to Robin Hobb, because I cried so many times, like not even just crying, like full-on panic attack inducing level of sobbing. And it's just so good. Her character work just from this single book is incredible. And animal companions are fantastic, which is one of the reasons why I probably sobbed so crazy. And it's a really, really, really surprising for me character study in a fantasy book. So, which I really, really, really loved.
I was so nervous you weren't going to like it.
No, I knew she was going to love it. I had no doubts.
I didn't want to hype it up so much, but then she sent us the message and it's like, okay, she likes it.
If you could understand me through all the tears.
Yeah.
Oh. So my character, I I technically kind of know some of the ending because when I answered this, as I said, we were supposed to do this a little while ago, but life happens. But I chose Riza Hawkeye from Full Metal Alchemist. She is my favorite character, and she's not a main character. She's a supporting character who is part of Roy Mustang's like squad, and she's kind of his right hand man, and I just adore her. She also has a dog named it's a Shiba Inu, and his name's Hayate, and he's awesome. But I really am very nervous to see what kind of happens to her. Like, I know some of it, but like I just don't want her to like be sacrificed for the overall plot, because I think I would probably like throw the book across the room if that happened. So that was my answer for that. Question number 6, which is Paige Matthews, a series you were late to the party with.
All right, I'm still late to this party. Malice, still late, still haven't shown up. As it happens.
I like this still hasn't shown up. There's still time.
Not this year. I put it in a video and I was like, if come this time next year, I still haven't read a John Gwen, someone do something.
So all of us will send you a copy. Got it.
Only the tall ones, not the UK ones. I don't want that.
Okay.
No, but I mean, I do actually. The reason why I feel like I'm extra late is I think I will really like it. It's also Michael Sullivan, so Theft of Swords as well. Like, I just feel like both of these are like the type of adventure, high stakes, but French. I don't know. They're different types of fantasy, obviously. Like Theft of Swords, I know is more adventure, fun times, two bros doing shit. And then like Malice is more like high stakes fantasy adventure with all the people. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff people say that means I will probably like it. But by the time I read it, everyone will have moved on. And so I'm late. It's fine. So.
It's okay. I own 2 John Gwen books. I still have not read them.
We were supposed to read them together, and then we fell apart.
Life happens. I went with Robin Hobb because I know people have been talking about her for years, and I just got on the Hobb train this year, and I love it. Especially the live ship series.
So good.
I like it a little more than Fitz, which may be a unpopular opinion, but
I think some people think the Live Ship Traders is the best series, but their favorite character is still Fitz. I don't know. That's a thing I hear.
Yeah.
But
they're both fantastic. But yeah, Robin Hobb. I wish I had read her sooner.
Well, I am also still late to this party. I own a copy. That's a step in the right direction. But eventually I will read this. For the longest time, okay. So when a lot of people hype up a book or a series, I usually in my head go, well, I'm not reading that because I already know it's going to influence the way that I read the book.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like with the last book coming out, right? Jade Legacy is the last book, right? Okay, good.
I think so.
I feel like it's a safe time to at least own this. And then eventually I will read it. And we'll see.
Yes.
So for me, it's probably not the most popular, but the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I still have the freaking 3rd book to go. I had every intention of being like, yeah, I'm going to finish this year. Not happening. But it's fantastic. I think it's also somehow underrated, at least in comparison to the Broken Earth trilogy. It's fantastic.
I think Piper is agreeing with you.
See Angela's videos. Like
I actually don't watch my Inheritance trilogy video. It's like the 4th video I ever posted.
But I think the reason that I like this trilogy so much is that it's similar to the Dreamblood duology. Like each book stands on its own and has its own arc within it. And apparently that was a thing that I didn't know I absolutely needed in fantasy until I read the Dream Duology and then this. So that immediately shoots it up as a favorite. So, yay.
Did you know that there's a read-along starting for that soon? So you could jump in when they read the third book.
Really?
Who's doing it?
Chloe from Thistle and Verse, who did the Broken Earth trilogy this summer. It's the same Discord. She just changed the art and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. I didn't know it was happening, and then I noticed. I'm like, oh, do I reread it now? I do want to reread it, and then I'm like, Angela, you're not in like a reading mood right now. Stop it. It's like, stop.
So for context and like what the story is about, so essentially it's a world where there are gods in this world, like they're actual tangible gods, and that's really it. I can't say anything about each individual story without spoiling stuff, but like one of them is kind of like a
it's about dysfunctionalfamilies.com.
Yeah. Like the first book is like I like to refer to it in my own head as like a chosen one type story, and then the second one is like a murder mystery / romance kind of. And who knows what the third book will be? So
they're really good. They're really good. I really love them. Although when you finish the third book, let me know because I have to send you pictures of the short story that's not in the omnibus.
Yes, I was so tempted to get the individual ones at the bookstore the other day, but I was like, I don't need it. So
I'm just so annoyed that they went through the whole effort of making an omnibus and they just didn't include this like 4-page short story that is pivotal to emotional catharsis. And I'm just like, what?
That seems like poor judgment on their part.
They didn't read the book, obviously.
So my answer to this was a two-parter as well. One of them was Jade City because I also haven't read it yet. So Katrina, maybe we can read that in 2020 together. Because I literally own books 1 and 2 because Abby bought me book 2 for my birthday. So I feel like I just don't have an excuse anymore. And then the other one was actually the Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft because I feel like I kept seeing it. I know folks here read it and liked it. I have read the first 2 books, but I haven't read Hod King or All of Babel, and I feel like I really got to get to that. So they did not go in the book tree. Actually, I'm lying. The Fall of Babel's right here, so I don't know how I'm going to get that out. But
next year
it's fine. I'll get to the Hod King. It'll be fine. So those are the 2 series. I mean, at least one I started. I'm just behind everyone. That's fine. Moving on. So, Leo Wyatt, a book or series that you turn to for a pick-me-up.
Oh, Leo. I love Leo. Leo's great.
So dependable.
Except for when he's not, but it's fine. It's fine. Like, I think Leo is when the show became like a soap opera times 10, and I was like, fine, that's fine. Supernatural soap opera, yes. I thought about writing a book, but I'm just going to say the TV show Bones. If you must know my book comfort reads, it's anything by Sarah J. Maas that is not young adult, which is most of her stuff, but don't tell publishers, I guess. But right now, I literally spent the last 2 days watching the entirety of season 4 of Bones, which is 26 episodes. Hence the me not reading much right now.
It's a good show.
Fine. It is a good show.
I was making my sweater.
And the books, while not the same.
My grandma says the books bad.
I liked the books.
I think I wouldn't like the book because I think the show took a lot of artistic license and character work.
Yeah, I read the books before the show.
Okay, because I feel like the show characters are my favorite people in the world.
Yeah, it's
Does
different.
the book even have sweets?
I don't think so.
Because Sweets is like the minute Sweets enters, the game changes in Bones.
The books are a lot more serious, whereas I think the show is a lot more. But they're really good if you like murder mysteries. They're really good.
The one category I never have opinions on in Goodreads is the mystery thriller category. Alas.
It's fine.
Listen, I'm not against cozy mysteries, but they don't normally go
they're
up in
not.
that
They're
category.
not cozy mysteries.
Yeah,
they're definitely not cozy.
Okay. Yeah, but speaking of
cozy things,
I go to cozy mysteries. One of my favorites is the Amish Candy Shop by Amanda Flower, and this is Jethro. He's emotional support pig.
I love that.
He's adorable. He's stealing candy, and he always gets into trouble, but it's so cute. And even though there's always a murder, they just make me happy.
Have you made your, cozy mystery recommendations video yet? Because I've been waiting actually as a viewer of your channel since before we were friends for that content, so I could figure out which cozy mystery to buy my grandmother.
We'll have a conversation.
I'm just saying that's content you should make.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But I need more info because there's so many. So it may have to be more than one video.
That's fine. Make it a whole series.
I was gonna say,
like what Kayla does with urban fantasy.
That's true.
Especially because, like, Stephanie, until I met you, I didn't know. Excuse me, Prue. Until I met you, I didn't know cozy mysteries like that were a thing, and now I'm like, kind of want to check it out, but like don't know where to start. So I would 100% be all over that video.
Sharon started reading some, and she liked them, and I'm very excited.
All right, Sharon, so everyone, if in like 2 months Stephanie hasn't started this train, we need to get at her because this is your brand. It's like a third of what you read.
Yeah,
I'll work.
And I mean, you had me an emotional support pig. So
I know, he's adorable.
And there's some cozy mysteries that have cat animal companions. I know those. There's the whole food category.
There's a cozy for everything.
And outside of this, Stephanie sent me a link to a cozy mystery with horses. So
I saw that.
You go. Okay, I'm gonna get us back on track just because I know folks need to eat dinner. But go Phoebe.
So Discworld is my go-to pick-me-up comfort read, and I have not read this one yet, but it's December and this is Hogfather. So it seems appropriate. But I will say, I put this into practice recently. I went to to New York City a couple weeks ago to meet some friends. And on the way back to the train station, we were in an Uber, and the traffic was crazy. We were running really behind. So we raced through Penn Station to get me on the train. We pulled out of the train station, got stuck in the tunnel for over an hour.
Oh my God.
No electricity. The lights went out. They couldn't get us back to the train station. And I bought this in New York City. So I pulled it out and I started reading it. And it brought me great comfort. So I can attest to Discworld being a good comfort read.
No one should be surprised. Persuasion by Jane Austen.
That's the Jane Austen? That's like the least rom-com of the Jane Austens, isn't it?
But it's
this is her favorite Jane Austen I ever read. This is my favorite novel of all time.
That's fine. It's like me liking Elantris and Brandon Sanderson. You can have it.
This is not the same as Elantris, okay?
That's true, but in terms of like the book that no one talks about by that author.
I know.
We all woke up feisty today. I love it.
So.
It's a Monday.
It is, yeah.
I mean, I feel like I said it before in one of the other tags we've done, but this is the book that I go to when I'm feeling slumpy, when I'm feeling down. It's the book that I can always go to just it's my comfort read. It's my go-to. It's a good palate cleanser. It brings me joy when I'm down. It gets me back into reading if I'm feeling slumpy, and it's just fantastic. So
it's the first book Evie ever got me, and I haven't read it yet because I'm a bad person.
It's fine.
You got time. It's okay.
Like, who here has read Persuasion? Okay. I really thought you had, Ariel, but that's okay.
No, that's like one of the few that I haven't read.
It's getting an adaptation next year, right?
Yeah, so it's that and Sense and Sensibility. But I've read Northanger Abbey, Jane Austen, that's the author. Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, I've read like 3 or 4 times. Yeah, I haven't read that one. I need to. So for me, it's funny, we actually mentioned what I'm pretty sure will be my comfort read from now on, and that was Love Hypothesis, because I just loved it. Like, it just, I don't know, it has, so here's the thing. Anyone who's heard me rant about a contemporary romance and why I tend to not read them particularly beyond like a 3, sometimes a 4, is the most common trope that I seem to come across outside of the one that I like, which is hate to love or dislike to love or whatever, is miscommunication. And it drives me up a wall, because it's usually well, I don't think they want this, so I'm just not going to do it. And I just sit there and go, could you just maybe ask them? Could you just be an adult and have a conversation? There's a little bit of miscommunication in Love Hypothesis, but I thought it was done so well. And the motive for why there is a miscommunication made sense. It was an adult. And here's our cameo today. I love it.
Yeah, it was definitely realistic.
Yeah, it made sense that they were miscommunicating. It wasn't like a contrived plot device, which is one of the reasons. And I also just loved the characters. I loved Olive as a main character. I just want to be her. I don't know. So I finished that book and seriously immediately wanted to reread it. So I'm pretty sure that will be my comfort read in the future.
How true
Which
is
one
it
is this?
that it was like a Rilo fanfic?
I didn't think that at all,
idea.
because I hate
Whatever.
Rilo. Raylo, whatever. I don't like them. I didn't get that at all, personally. That's
a Star Wars reference, right?
I haven't watched enough to have a valid opinion on that, but I loved it. I got a couple friends to read it, and they loved it.
I got my friends to read it. I've gotten 2 of my real-world friends to read The Love Hypothesis because I knew they would like it.
Yeah. It's also, because I feel like a lot of people have said it's hate to love or whatever. I actually think it's more Grump and Sunshine, personally, than dislike to love or...
It's so organic.
Yeah. I thought it was really, really well done. Wait, so Angela, who's this?
Oh, this is Pooh Town. He's a grump. He was yelling because he thinks it's food time, and it's not. It's not food time. So he's a grump. And he's like, why am I here? But he puts up with a whole bunch because he's, I don't know, weird. He's a weird cat. Normally you can't. Don't do this with your cat.
All right. So we're now on to... I love that. I love that our animals visit.
I have so many.
I do too. So Demons, a book series that has a big following that you didn't like. I had some that I'm not gonna say.
I'm just trying to decide how much violence I'm choosing.
Exactly.
Just list them all. It's fine.
Right, I only wrote 3.
If you do 3, I'll do 3. How about that?
Okay. The First Law, Lord of the Rings, and A Song of Ice and Fire.
Ouch.
I didn't know about the Lord of the Rings, but
I knew you weren't a huge fan, but I didn't think it'd be on the list.
It has a huge following, and literally I could care less if new stuff came out for it tomorrow. I've never read any of the extra stuff.
Just the original trilogy and The Hobbit.
I read the original trilogy. So I've been a reader my whole life, and I tried to read the original trilogy in 7th grade. I was like, this is my New Year's resolution. I'm finally going to read Lord of the Rings because everyone tells me that's what you do next. And I was like, I am 100 pages in, and we are 2 miles from the Shire. What is happening?
Accurate.
Which is weird because I feel like a lot of people who like Lord of the Rings have read it in that age category. They read it growing up.
I read it.
Yeah, and for me, it didn't work.
Time.
And then I tried again in college, and I just wasn't in the headspace. And I finally read it as a grad student once literary fiction helped me obtain some focus and be okay. And I didn't hate it, but I just don't care about it. Does that make sense? That's all. The other ones,
that's fine.
I think the First Law trilogy is pretty overrated in terms of its character work. Like, I think people say it has good character work, and I think it has memorable characters. I think those are two different things.
Is that that's Abercrombie?
Yeah. I don't think it's bad, but like I even reread it to see what I was missing. I'm like, I don't understand. Evie will probably like it. I don't know.
I have a feeling I won't, because I started to read, like, I don't know, the Amazon, like, preview chapters or whatever, and I'm like, this is not working for me right now. But of course, mind you, it's a chapter. Like, it's not. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike it, again, but like I reread it so I could read Best Served Cold. Like, I was going to keep going. Like, that was the plan, was to read the standalones and then read the new trilogy. And I'm just like, And it's probably because I'm reading Wheel of Time. If I wasn't reading Wheel of Time, that would be the series I forced myself to read. But I could only do that to myself in so many lanes. And then A Song of Ice and Fire. If Winds of Winter came out tomorrow, I wouldn't bat an eye. I just wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't care. So that's all. Yeah, are you choosing violence?
I also have 3. One, it's not a big following, but the author has a big following. It's To Sleep in a Sea of Stars.
Oh, yeah,
It seems like everyone, except for a few people, really liked it, and I hated that book so much. And then The Black Prism by Brent Weeks.
Oh.
I've been wanting to read that for years, and I tried to read it last month, and I got halfway through it, and I was so bored. And
then you better stop if you didn't like it after the first couple twists.
Oh,
yeah.
I DNF'd it. I was bored. And then Game of Thrones. I read the first book. He writes in all simple sentences, and I hated it, and I have no desire to carry on with the series. And then I watched the first 2 episodes of the series, and I was like, I can't. So
that's fair.
If you like it, I'm happy for you. I don't care. So.
Well, I guess I'll name 3 as well.
Power of 3 will set you free.
Yes.
Right.
One of these I am going to try again, and that would be Malice. So Malice didn't work for me when I tried to read it, but I will try again. It might have just been my headspace. We'll see. The other 2 that I am not going to try to read again, Bone Ships and The Lies of Locke Lamora.
That's what I should have said.
The pacing, the structure, the time jumps, they just did not work for me at all.
Oh, I just thought it was like, everyone's like, oh my God, they're the best friends ever. And I'm like, I'm so bored by their banter and whatever's happening. Like, I'm not getting it.
I'm not into it.
It was totally fine. It was a serviceable book, but I didn't keep going. And I'm like, it's supposed to be 7 books and there's only 3 out and we're averaging a book every 5 years.
No.
I'm gonna wait.
Yeah. It seems like people either really like it or really don't like it.
Yeah.
So I feel like I had the same answer to a similar question to a previous tag as this. But if we're going with 3, I can easily come up with 3. So my actual answer was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Like, I see why people like it, but for me, it was just way too repetitive. And I feel like maybe she had too much in mind, that it had a movie deal, and she was catering to that for the story instead of actually writing an actual novel. Oh, hi, Max.
It was also extremely, extremely hyped. Like, way, way hyped. Yeah.
Was that your first V.E. Schwab?
No. A Darker Shade of Magic.
Did you like A Darker Shade of Magic?
I really loved it. I actually did.
That is so odd to me. I don't like that book because I think it's too simple.
It was when I was getting back into reading. That
would work for that.
I wouldn't say that it's YA, but I also wouldn't say it's like adult. It's like whatever they call
New
new
adult
adult or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it fits kind of in there.
Books.
It was just
it's definitely adult. For me, it was so I feel like derivative is too harsh of a word, but I literally had seen everything that had happened in that book before, and it didn't bring anything new enough. Like, I would have needed the characters to shine more. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it felt like 2/3 or 3/4 of what I wanted, and it was missing something.
Did you read the rest of the series?
Yeah, I read it all.
Okay.
I get that. I read it when I first started getting into fantasy, and I really liked it, but I don't know if I'd love it as much if I were to read it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad series. I know why a lot of people like it. For me, it was one of those. I read it after I'd read like 20 or 30 adult fantasy. And I think it's different if you read it in your first batch of adult fantasy.
Yeah, and
that was my return to adult fantasy, which is why I think it was why I loved it so much. And it'll still always hold a place in my heart because like I had been reading a lot of YA fantasy and then read that, and that was kind of how I got back into adult fantasy was with that. So it was like a good gateway series, if you will, fun. Even though I read it before, like read adult fantasy before.
Same. My other one is, sorry, Angela.
It's okay.
Brandon Sanderson.
Just say the cause. Say it with your chest.
Elantris and the Final Empire, to be specific, because those are the only ones I've read. Just, I mean, Elantris is fine. Like, it's passable, in my opinion, and I think you would agree that it's fine.
I would agree it's 5 stars. I would agree it's a 5-star book.
And then the Final Empire was just like, oh god,
another 5-star book. Yeah, correct.
Moving past that, though, my third one is the All Souls trilogy, which I didn't realize had as big of a fan base as it does.
What is that? What's the name of a book in that?
A Discovery of Witches.
Deborah Harkness.
Oh, it's because it's a TV show. My friend was just telling me about it. My friend who's just on like the book internet. So yeah, it's popular outside of book internet.
Yeah, it's basically kind of like Twilight for adults. Mm-hmm. It's fine. Like, she puts a lot of work into like the historical, like history stuff behind it because the main character is a history professor or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is fine. The writing itself is good. It's not bad. But the main character is insufferable. There are a lot of plot conveniences. Let's be honest, the main character to me is a Mary Sue.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So I feel like my 3 are gonna be like shots fired. The first one is, I've said it before, is Sanderson as well.
There are dozens of us!
I can't. I'm also not on the Hobb train. I know. See, I told you that's fired. I read Assassin's Apprentice and it was fine. I think I gave it 3 stars, but
you need to read Ship of Magic. I say this as someone who doesn't love Farseer.
Here's so I didn't like Assassin's Apprentice, or like I said, I like to find. I read 80 pages of Ship of Magic and couldn't get it.
I had to read 150 because I was so angry at the first 150 pages in Ship of Magic, and once I got to 100, 150, all of the sadness stops, and then you get to watch people deal with their new sad situations.
Okay. It's one that I intend to try again.
You know what I'm talking about, though? Like, the back of the book takes 150 pages to happen.
Okay. So I'm just going to say this now, Angela. Having only read Assassin's Apprentice, I now know how you feel. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Well, I'm just going to get a moment now, too, because I also don't like N.K. Jemison's books.
That's just objectively wrong. It's okay, though.
Again, though, that is one that I want to try again, because I started to read 5th season and just, like, couldn't get into it, but I also tried to read 5th season like as COVID lockdown was starting, so probably not the best headspace. And I've read a little bit of her collection of short stories, How Long Till Black Future Month, and one story I liked, and then the next one not so much. But so that and the live ship traders are things I do want to retry, but as of right now, I'm just like not on the on the bandwagon.
But I can actually, so you probably read Schwab before Sanderson, right? That's my prediction at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the issue, is if you read Sanderson before Schwab, because they do similar things. Like, I was reading A Darker Shade of Magic, like, so we're just going to call this character Kel? There's a Kelsier in Mistborn. Like, what are we doing?
So I can see that, and I can agree with that to a certain extent. But I think actually my problem with Sanderson is I had my time in epic fantasy of that, like, where like it's the big thick book and it's big world building and like all of that. Because when in like high school, after I read Lord of the Rings, I then read Terry Goodkind, Robert Jordan, Kristen Britton, just like all of those like heavy hitters that a lot of folks are now sort of rediscovering. So for me, I think it's more like I had my time in epic fantasy of that particular style.
Oh, I think it's so different from Jordan. I hate Jordan, so that's...
see, that's the thing. I read like 12 books in real time back when it was coming out. Now I'm an adult and I go, that was not very good and slightly problematic. But like I just read, and like I also read like a little bit of Tad Williams, and I read like whoever was writing epic fantasy, like of those like big chunky epic fantasy books like at that time, I've read one or all. And so for me, in the same way you had that reaction to Darker Shade of Magic, I started reading Sanderson and I was bored because I was like, I've, for me, seen this before. But like, I have nothing against, I wouldn't say they're bad books. They just don't do anything for me.
Which one bored you? Or I forget which one of the Sandersons bored you, because you told us the other ones.
Which one? Sorry?
Which Sanderson bored you? Because I don't think you said.
I tried Mistborn twice, and I also tried Way of Kings.
Oh yeah, both of those have very slow starts. That is true.
Yeah. I also just, I don't. It's, but like I said, I have nothing against the books. I just couldn't. They're just. There are other things I'd rather be reading currently. So maybe someday. But and Mistborn,
I mean, for
I tried
you,
3
I would
times.
say you might actually like Warbreaker. Of all of the Sanderson, that is.
I will say that one interests me.
That's the one that's a standalone, and like it gets into the plot like immediately, and it's tropey in ways that are really cozy and like adjacent to YA and stuff.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like with me, for like these bigger, like even like with Don Gwynn, sometimes I run into a slump, like because I have a relatively short attention span. Like I like legitimately do. Sometimes I don't have the patience for those books as an adult, which is like a kid. I was like, give them to me. This is all I want to read. So it's like, yeah. But like
you
I said,
also never have to read
a
Sanderson again. I support that. But Jemison, those Jemison takes are just objectively wrong, and I can't.
Okay. I said I'll try it again. I just have to be in the right headspace. I didn't unhaul the book. I still have the book. So, but anyways, moving on. So, final question is, I forget what it's called.
Oh, it's
Forever Charmed. A book or series with a perfect ending.
All right, I have a book and I have a series. My series is Machineries of Empire by Yoon-Ha Lee. That I started the last book in the series, and from the first chapter, I was like, this is a 5-star book. And it stayed a 5-star book the entire time. And it was a phenomenal experience. There is a potential that this will be a perfect ending. I'm not sure yet. But then as a book, The Echo Wife. There are very few instances where I read the final paragraph of a book and I put it down and I'm walking around my living room going, what the hell? And I'm just like, what just happened? And like, it's not a big reveal, but internally it was like a big moment. I'm like, we went there. And I was like, what? I was even telling Ryan, I was like, Ryan, I don't even know. He's just like cooking dinner and he's just like watching me go manic in the living room. Which I think for a psychological thriller, that's like what your endings are supposed to do. Now, I will say I don't think everyone feels that way about that ending. But to me, I was like, for the premise of this book and the journey we went on, that was the perfect ending. It was going to be like a 4.5 to 4-star read, and then it's like a 5-star because that ending just, it stuck that landing. It was so good to me. So, yep.
I just love when our 2 cats' tails just whack.
I know. I have a very needy cat. I had to mute it because she was having a sneezing fit. I also have a book in a series. So the book is The Mountains Sing by Win Fen K-Mai. I read this and loved it so much, I immediately read it again. It was really, really good. And it follows a grandmother and her granddaughter in different timelines, and they kind of intersect. Set in the backdrop of like the Vietnam War, but from a Vietnamese perspective because the author's from Vietnam, and it was just fantastic. It was so good.
Is it out in paperback yet?
Yes, it is.
Cool, because I can nominate it for book club if it's out in paperback.
I would reread it a third time.
Well, no, it's for my local book club, so you probably...
Oh,
I don't
well,
assume you're going to fly to
anyway.
Boston for this.
fine. But do it. It was really good. And then a series that I thought, I don't know if it was like 100% perfect, but it wasn't the ending I thought it would be, but I was 100% happy with it.
The scene in the kitchen.
Yes, it was so satisfying.
Like, so
and it tied up everything so nicely. Just loved it so much.
Evie, don't you ever read the Davabad trilogy. I will take it out of your hands.
I told you, I think I mentioned to you that I attempted to read the first book, which
I told you not to.
Yeah, I think,
and I DNF'd it. So there we go.
It's another series I'm late to
if
the
you're
game with.
not Evie, it's really, really good.
There are certain people I don't want to read certain things, and Evie's the only one who listens to me. Leanna still tries. And I'm like, Leanna, you're not going to like that book.
Evie tried. It's
So
okay.
I have two series, actually. The first one is Lord of the Rings. I will die on this
Agreed.
hill. Perfect
Agreed.
ending.
I'm
I
on that
love
hill
it
with
so
you.
much. Thank you.
Agree.
The next one, no one should be surprised.
I was waiting for it.
So the fact that you follow these characters over like, I don't know, 50 years of their lives, the ending just hits extra hard. I was on a live show for the last book in this series. So the night before I was flipping through my tabs, like catching up, and I found myself reading the last 3 chapters of the last book and just like crying. Just like, it's the best kind of sad. It's it's very, I don't even know. It just, yeah. And it just, there's one plot line that I wish we had a little bit more of an answer to, but otherwise I couldn't have asked for anything better.
Nice. If you like that type of thing, you definitely need to read Jade City, though. Talk about a book that's taking us decades through these characters' lives.
Yes.
Well, 2022, it's happening.
I'm just saying,
Yes.
Jade Legacy, it's 20 years have gone past in like 200 pages.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I think that's important to know for Jade War and Jade Legacy. Jade City is actually more contained to like 1 year like you're used to. But the other ones, they really span long periods of times, and I think it can be unexpected.
I am glad you said that because that would have
Especially
really been
Jade
jarring.
Legacy.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I've
Jade
heard,
Legacy at least starts to write it at the top of the chapters. In Jade War,
Yeah.
you have to notice.
Yes.
well, I
Okay.
heard the pacing was a little different in the second book. So I'm assuming that's why.
It's more like so the first half of Jade City is about the pacing for the entirety of Jade War. It's just like the ending of Jade City is a much more like ramped up, and that doesn't really happen equivalently in Jade War.
I see.
But it's still like the same quality and the same. I think it's similar pacing. It's just the way the internet talks about Jade War. You're like, well, it's called Jade War. We're at war. We're going.
Yeah.
And no.
Go, Grams.
For me, book-wise, I mean, to have a repeat, Assassin's Apprentice, I think, even though obviously I'm going to continue the trilogy and continue with the Realm of the Elderlings, like this has such a cathartic ending to this story that I still think about it. I mean, mind you, I only finished this like a month ago, but still, I'm still thinking about it. And considering like everything that happens in the story, it's just comes full circle and it's beautiful and it's heartbreaking and oh, my heart. Series wise, this might be
There she is.
but
I was waiting.
There she
We're
is.
waiting
the
for it.
Witch.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it's one of my favorite series of all time, if not my favorite series, alongside Dune. But I can see why some people might not like this because technically there are 2 endings within the story, and that could probably really jar people. And normally I wouldn't like that, but for whatever reason, I loved it, and it's so good. Like this whole trilogy is really about the conflict between old religions and new religions and nature and just
chaos and order and
and people, and to have two different endings that kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily resolves it, but it gives you closure to both aspects, two sides of those thematic elements that you've been exploring this entire time. And I love it. So, shameless plug for the Winter Night Trilogy read-along that I'm doing starting this month. So there's still time to join.
There's always time. They're short.
Yeah.
All 3 is less than a Stormlight Archive.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my answer for this is actually a YA series. It's probably my favorite YA series. And that's an Ember in the Ashes by Saba Tahir. The last book, so my thing with like most series in general is I always feel like the last book's a little bit of a letdown because it's like, it's over, it's done. Sometimes the author doesn't do what you thought they were going to do. And also there's like the added thing of, well, now it's over. And as someone who very rarely rereads, I think that's part of it. But Ember in the Ashes, the last book is just, it's so good. Everything had a purpose and had a like reason for it, and not everything gets tied up in like a nice little pristine bow. But like, and I just remember like being massively stressed out for the last like 150 pages of that book because I was just like, oh my god, what is happening? Like, so it's a YA series, but I think it leans more new adult, kind of toes that line. And I just thought it was like the whole series was just perfection for me.
I'm afraid to finish that series for my own emotional well-being. I read the first 2 and she about killed me. I own all of them.
I'm excited to read that one. That's on one of my young adult series I want to read. That one and Lobizona.
So
those are 2.
Lobizona is really good.
No, I've just been waiting for the 3rd book to be out so I can.
Yeah, I stopped. I haven't read Cazadors because I want it to be. I'm trying to be better about like reading things when they're closer to complete, so I don't keep starting one book and then never finishing the series.
Yeah.
But all right, that is the Charmed book tag. Thank you so much for being here. All of these folks' channels will be linked down below in the description, or well, in Katrina's case, I'll link her Instagram. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, comment, subscribe to everyone here because they're all wonderful and you should follow them, and they all have amazing reviews and takes. You do. I love watching when y'all do reviews, but thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time.